Welcome to the Shelf Life Podcast. I'm your host, Pam Denholm, Executive Director of the South Shore Food Bank. Today, I am sitting down with Cheryl Schondek, the Chief Operating Officer of the Greater Boston Food Bank. Cheryl brings nearly 3 decades of food industry experience to a mission that is as much about high-tech logistics as it is about human dignity. In this episode, we're going behind the scenes of an operation that feeds 600,000 neighbors every month. We'll discuss the reality of the working hungry in Massachusetts, the innovation of medically tailored food boxes, and why treating every person with respect is the most important ingredient in ending hunger. I'm your host, Pam Denholm, and today we are sitting with Cheryl Schondek, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Greater Boston Food Bank. Cheryl has a career in moving food to where it needs to be, and she's a voice of both practicality and hope in this landscape. So welcome, Cheryl.
Good morning. So nice to see you, Pam.
Oh, it's great to be here. This is such an impressive operation, just the scope of it. Every time I come here, I get goosebumps.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and thank you for hosting this podcast today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to dive in. So one of the questions I had for you right off the cuff was when you want to tell somebody what it is you do, but you want to speak from your job title, what do you say?
Well, I think that we are all in the food business. I feed hungry people, and so do you.
Yeah.
We are in this together. And you mentioned in the intro that I had spent over 2.5 decades in the food business, and I was able to take that knowledge here to the food bank as the Chief Operating Officer. But our main goal is to provide that basic human right to the 600,000 clients that we're feeding every month, a healthy meal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so how, when you think about the practicalities of what you're doing and you're moving food and you're doing all these things, I sometimes find that when my brain gets into the zone of we have to do this by then, it becomes so practical. How do you keep the human element and the mission and the impact of what we're doing at the center of your focus while still doing all these operational things and making all these big decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great concept. I think it starts here at the food bank. The mission is the warehouse, and you can hear the activity going on right now, the power equipment in use. You know that we come to this building every day at 4 a.m., but we have to treat the team with dignity and respect. We are so fortunate that we have over 600 donors who support us, whether it's volunteers, whether it's financial donors, whether it's food donors, and 600 partner agencies, soup kitchens, shelters, and food pantries. And we must continue to keep the compassion at the center of the table. We have to treat our team with respect. We have to treat the donors with respect. We have to treat these 600 partners with respect. Why? Because the client that needs food doesn't want to be at a food pantry, doesn't want to go to a soup kitchen, doesn't want to go to a shelter. They have fallen on hard times.
What I'm hearing in everything that you're saying, which I love because it's so foundational to what food access is that we need to take care of each other. And you foster that culture here with your own team. You foster it with the agencies. You encourage agencies to foster it within their teams. And then that just bleeds on through out into the community.
We have to go through the motions of receiving the food, inventorying the food, selecting the food, and shipping the food. But if we do not do that with dignity, respect, and passion, we have not succeeded the mission. We recently did a survey. We do a survey with our team every year. The reason people are here at the Greater Boston Food Bank, the number one reason is because they support the mission to end hunger here. And that's why we're so successful. We have to teach, coach, and train. We have to work with folks. We want folks to advance. We want to create efficiencies. We want to use digital transformation so that we can get food into the building in a more timely manner and out of the building in a more timely manner. But it has to be with dignity and respect.
You speak so much of dignity and how important it is in your culture here, but can you give us an example of what that means and how you frame it for your team?
I think dignity and respect means different things for different people, but we have to be able to put everyone in this building in the shoes of the client that is going to a food pantry, a soup kitchen, or a shelter. The other opportunity that we have is we have come to the conclusion that we are going to work with the client on culturally relevant meals. Just because I may like a certain menu, I can't make that assumption, Pam, that you and I like the same flavor profiles. My job is not only to give that food with dignity and respect, it has to be the highest quality. I want to give folks ingredients such as herbs. I want to give folks recipes because you know as well as I, my family will tell you, I'm not a good cook. I need to use those recipes.
Yeah.
And I want to provide those clients with those recipes along with the culturally relevant foods that they expect and I want them to feed their families with.
Yeah, and I can speak to that personally. I remember when we first arrived in the United States with my family and I went to a grocery store. First of all, I'd never been inside of a food store as big as the regular Stop and Shops and Shaw's here. And I found it so overwhelming. Um, I I ended up standing in the middle of the store and I broke down into tears, and it was the cereal aisle. I'll never forget it.
And you probably didn't even have cereal on your shopping list.
No, I didn't. But I mean, just the choice and the trying to understand what was on offer and what would be a good fit for my family was so hard. And then I remember somebody coming up and patting me on the shoulder. She says, "It's okay, dear. Just get the chocolate."
Is that what you bought?
That
Can you
is
remember?
That is
Yeah,
what I ended up buying, and it
yeah,
was a hit with the kids.
that's
But
great.
yeah, I mean, when people are coming from different backgrounds, um, just such a simple thing as the size of the store or what is on offer has a big impact on what people will choose.
What the items are on their shopping list. Another opportunity that we have is we deal with over 30 locally grown farmers.
Yeah.
We are now working with those farmers and asking them to grow specific items that our clients are asking for. So we want fresh corn from the start of the season until the end of the season. We want butternut squash, buttercup, acorn, Hubbard. We want collards, kale, kohlrabi, Swiss chard, beets, all because that's what the clients are asking us to go to the farmers and plant their crops and provide those healthy items on their plate.
So Cheryl, I mean, we talk about this topic exactly of providing people food with what they need. Can I ask you, what is a food memory that has shaped you as a person? You think back to either your childhood or time with your own family.
Well, my mother's family is from Italy. My grandfather was born outside of Naples. He was a cobbler. And I remember spending time with my grandmother making homemade macaroni, canning tomatoes, going out to the garden, picking apples and making a pie, making a potato frittata for lunch. So the memories of cooking with family stay strong to me. And like many cultures, it's all about food. Even though I grew up from humble beginnings, we always had a meal. My family always found a way to have a meal. We still get together for large Sunday dinners. The amount of people that show up on Sundays has dwindled, but if you are in the neighborhood, please stop by for food because it's all about food, family, and friends.
Yeah.
And that's what has gotten me through where I am today. I started in the food business over 29 years ago. I took all that experience of buying, merchandising, marketing, own brand development, supply chain, here to the food bank, and brought the food bank to the next level. The building was built for 50 million pounds. In the last 7 or 8 years, we've distributed over 100 million pounds of food. And you know the disposal rate is less than 1%. So it's providing the structure that I learned throughout the course of my career, bringing that to the food bank to get more healthy, nutritious meals out to those in need. The other thing I love about food is everybody understands food.
Yeah.
Food is a welcome tradition no matter where you are in the world, no matter what you're doing in the world, no matter what your food preference is, you can share that with a friend and with a neighbor.
Yeah, we started the food pantry garden a couple years ago, and we decided we would grow a more diverse range of things. We figured there are things that we know we'll get, through our partnership, and there are things we know we'll have access to through local farms, but we wanted to make sure that the items that were on the fringe weren't ignored. And so we planted some gilo peppers and some gilo eggplant and a couple other things. And we had a family walk through the garden, and the mom started to cry because she hadn't seen gilo eggplant since she had left home.
Left her country.
And it
Yeah.
brought her right back to her grandfather's garden. And she was just besides herself that she gets to share this thing now with her son, in her new home, in the place where she's now calling her home, and she's now making her new family and whatever.
And sharing those recipes. She's able to
Yes.
share those recipes.
It was a very beautiful moment.
That's phenomenal. And talk about innovation, Pam. I mean, the last time that we were together, you launched the bus.
Yes.
I know that you recently got your Class A driving.
Oh, yeah.
So we just hired our 9th driver, but I do need a 10th, and I'm going to call you as a fill-in. But tell me more about how that is going. I've been waiting to talk to you about that.
Oh my God, I loved the experience. It took me completely out of my comfort zone. You know, we're doing this all day long. And so I got to hang out with a group of people that I might never normally meet or cross paths with. That was a lot of fun. And then, just getting into the truck, you needed a ladder, for goodness sake. It's like 3 steps up. They're so big. And then maneuvering this thing down the highway, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. But I loved it. I loved it. I loved being able to do it. My classmates gave me the CB nickname of Mama Bear.
I love it. I love it.
So yeah, Mama Bear in convoy with Greater Boston Food Bank. We should do it.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And that's one thing that motivates me every day to come in early. You know that we open at 4. I'm usually here by 4:30 or 5. And that's what people say, why?
Yeah.
I'm a morning person. I like to get up early and do things. And sitting in a chair for a while is a challenge to my system because I like to be out and about supporting. But the team motivates me to do what I do. Coming in contact with people such as yourself that have the same passion that I have, that's what motivates me.
That's actually a great intro into another question I had for you. And that is, what nourishes you professionally or personally? Like what feeds you and makes you just want to?
People. I mean, I love people. Knowledge is power. I want to constantly be learning about things that I don't know about. And I can't wait to get a recipe on that, the item that you just grew, the gilo eggplant. So let's please share some with me, and then I'm going to try to cook it, prepare it. But people motivate me. I am very family oriented. I have a wonderful, tight-knit family who have supported me throughout my entire career, who support me here at the Greater Boston Food Bank. And I visit the elderly on weekends. And I just love people. My children used to go shopping with me in the supermarkets and say, we're not going anymore because I will see 2 or 3 people in an aisle that I may know or that I don't know. And the old adage that they used to say is, you'll talk to a tree and the tree will talk back. But that's what motivates me. People. I love cultures. I love to travel. I love to learn about what you're doing and why. And as I mentioned before, that's the common theme. Food. What brings us together? Healthy, nutritious meals. The challenges I think that we find with our clients is hunger affects every single city and town in the state of Massachusetts. Now, clearly, it affects more cities and towns differently because of the populations. As you know, we have 100 pantries in Suffolk County, which is much more than we have in some of the more affluent cities and towns in the state. But there are pantries in more affluent cities and towns. Hunger affects every single city and town in the state of Massachusetts. Clearly, we're a business that would love to be out of business, but we know that with the challenges recently of the SNAP shutdown, the challenges of, as you had just mentioned, housing increases and other expenses that these families incur. That's why my core competency, as is yours, is to provide the food so that these families that have fallen on bad times can go support in another fashion. Your story resonates with me so perfectly. Been at the food bank for 12 years. When I came on board, the first pantry that I visited was down the Cape. As I mentioned, my husband is an 8th grade math teacher in a public school. He was home. I said, "You're going to drive me down there." He helped us with a hunger study. As we were leaving after the 4-hour shift, he was very quiet. I said, "Should we stop and get a sandwich on the way home?" And he didn't say anything. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he looked at me and he said, "Cheryl, I spoke to a woman who is a teacher. I'm a teacher. She can't afford to feed her son who had a brain tumor." And same situation, single parent of a son that had cancer. She found herself going to a food pantry. Unacceptable. That's why we do what we do.
And what happens when one of those pieces break?
Fall, yeah, when one may fall.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so important that we continue to surround ourselves with people that have the same passion that we do to provide hygiene, security, and food security. And I've used these words before: the teaching, coaching, training. We are so lucky that we do deal with so many of our retail partners, whether it be Shaw's, Star Market, Whole Foods, Wegmans, Stop and Shop, Aldi's, Costco, BJ's. We're all in the food business, and we learn from one another. And the support that we get from that food system is why we can do what we do.
Yes.
But it gets back to that one life-changing experience. Someone could get a diagnosis from their physician that they're not well. Someone could get in an automobile accident that they can't work anymore. Someone could have their significant other fall ill, or a family member fall ill. Not only are we trying to take care of our children, but now we're trying to take care of our senior family. I met your beautiful parents. My parents are aging. It's that one life-changing incident that we can all experience. No one is immune. Hunger is a basic human right. And food insecurity can affect any one of us. It can affect our neighbor next door, across the street, the person delivering the mail, the person that you see at your local supermarket, the person that you see when you go to your place of worship. It can affect every single one in our community. No one is immune.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me up at night. How do we fix that? One way is to continue to surround ourselves with people that have that same passion, because we are not going to solve this problem alone, Pam. As good as you are and as good as I am, and the work that we're doing with our 600 partners like yourself, we cannot do this alone.
Let's talk about the food system for a moment and the rising need of food access, or the rising food insecurity levels that we're seeing across our state. Where does it come from? Like, let's. I think people can be very confused by what food access is. So let's share what we see.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So I think one myth is folks do not understand why 1 in 3 residents in the state is food insecure. Massachusetts is a very expensive state to live in. And as you can see from behind me in the work that you do, our core competency is distributing food. So these folks that are food insecure can go worry about other items that tear their family apart, whether it be a utility bill, whether it be a health-related crisis, or whether it be some other challenge that they have in their family. So I don't want to sway from what my area of expertise is, and that is food. But Massachusetts is a very expensive state. And that is one reason why folks need a food bank, why folks need a food pantry.
I remember actually, Cheryl, sorry to interrupt. When I was first interviewing for this role, I was on my way to the interview and I'd done a whole bunch of prep and I was thinking, I'm from Southern Africa. Poverty is so visible. You see it everywhere you go. You know, it's in the grocery stores. It's as you drive down the street. And so I was driving to my interview thinking, well, doesn't look like anyone's hungry, right?
Right.
And then as part of my interview process, they asked me to work at a distribution, and I was talking to one of our clients, and she was a single mom. She had 3 kids. Her husband had just left her, and her housing was very, very unstable. And she had been moved around a lot. Her kids had changed schools a lot, and she had gone to the bank to apply for a loan to buy a house. And they said, you know, financially, you're just not there. You need to prove to us that you can save money for a whole year. Commit to an amount, put it in the bank account, and if you can save that set amount every month for a whole year, we will give you a loan. And so she did it.
Wow.
And she used the food pantry to do it. She scrimped, she saved, she, you know, was very careful with her budget. She visited us every time she could. She filled her cart with groceries. She went home, she saved, and she managed to do it.
1 in 3 residents is food insecure in the state. 1 in 3. That's an unacceptable statistic. But what I was most enamored at is 82% of those clients are working. They still can't provide a healthy meal for their family. Over 30% are working 2 jobs. What does that mean when that person goes to the pantry? There are so many people that need food, and that's why we're here doing what we do. Don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
Don't take what you do for granted. Put yourself in their shoes. Make believe that you are one of those 82% that is working and still can't provide food for their family. You may be in that category, and maybe you can teach, coach, and train and support those that are distributing food.
Nobody can move groceries like grocery store people can, Cheryl. But we interviewed a couple of them, and one of them said to me, Pamela, we are all one decision, one bad decision away, or 1 or 2 paychecks away from needing help in a very big way. And that reminded me of a conversation we had where you mentioned $600 is the number that so many families find that they are short every month to pay rent, to get groceries, to pay utilities. How do we fix this? Like, you know, we are one solution. We can talk about the interdependency too of all these systems, the grocery store systems, the SNAP benefit systems, the schools, the food pantries, the policy. And what happens when one of those pieces break?
Fall, yeah, when one may fall.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so important that we continue to surround ourselves with people that have the same passion that we do to provide hygiene security and food security.
I saw on social media recently during this recent SNAP crisis that some people in our community mobilized. Like one of our volunteers just made pots of soup and she would hand it out every Sunday. And another person volunteered for macaroni, love macaroni
and cheese, or one of the
and they made big
or
pots of
lasagnas and bring
And another person said, there is a seat at my table for anyone who needs it at any time. Just knock on the door. And we serve dinner at 7. And so During times of crisis, I feel like we come together when we rally around it as a community and we show that level of love and care. But people need food 365 days of
Right,
the year.
right.
So how do we take that energy
Yeah.
that is in response to something that's happening, and extend it beyond that and become and foster that culture of caring? How do we do that, Cheryl?
Yeah, the care has to it has to be as if we have all gone to into nursing school, if you will. You have to have that care and compassion with everybody that we feed. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Pam, because when I first came to the food bank, a lot of folks that I had surrounded myself with, family, friends, had this myth that people were only hungry during the month of November for the November holidays and then the month of December during the December holidays. Well, families that rely on their school district for meals, those children over the summer still need food. Folks that are hungry need food 365 days a year. That's why we operate 6 days a week. And very rarely do we shut down unless there is a snow emergency or some other emergency. But we never shut down during COVID. And during the SNAP crisis, what did we do? We opened up that pandemic playbook and we said, let's do additional direct deliveries of produce. Let's do additional direct deliveries of dry food. Let's ask the client what they need and let's hit that expansion button because you were seeing more clients. So tell me a little bit more about what's going on at your facility with your expansion.
Oh, great. Well, I'd love to talk about that in two aspects. So one is a lot of the food pantries still are in the basement of a church or have very limited storage. And then when a crisis happens and people respond, the first thing they respond with is food donations. And that is helpful. We have no control over what's coming in the door. And it takes a lot to store the food, to sort the food, to date check the food. That's a huge logistical thing to go through, and it takes a lot of space. And so, in a smaller food pantry, that can really be incredibly challenging. And so, one of the things that I love to educate people on is if you're feeling compelled to help, sometimes monetary donations are a better way to go because we can fill gaps with that money, right?
Yes.
You if you have tons and tons of one thing, but you don't have any rice, for example,
Right.
donations that come in are a product that may not serve an immediate purpose. They will still stock the shelf. We will
Right.
still get the food out,
Right.
but you may have an immediate need. So these monetary donations help in that way. But also it gives us the flexibility, and I know this is something you're going to really relate to make intelligent decisions that will really make the system more resilient. So, for example, um, somebody wanted to donate pledge a can of tuna, a box of tuna once a week. And after having a conversation with him, I said, well, whatever that's worth, I would rather you donate the money because with that, I can put a driver on the road
Yeah.
for one shift a week and he can go around to the grocery stores and rescue food.
Right.
And what he comes back with is so much more valuable than a box of tuna.
Yeah.
So it enables us to leverage the resources to get the best benefit that we can for the investment of time and money.
Right.
Right?
Right. No, I would agree. We're recently working with partners like Roach Brothers, Wegmans, and they are doing their consumer scan campaigns. And those donations would come back to the food bank, and our buying power is better than an individual going to a retail store to purchase those items. So we could hopefully increase, maybe double, sometimes triple, based on what our purchasing power is, utilizing a lot of our larger retailers to support and combine what their buying power is as well.
If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the food system um, to have a really great impact, what do you think that would be?
I think one item that challenges me is food rescue. We are so fortunate that last year we gleaned with our 600 retail partners almost 14 million pounds of food. But there's more food out there to be rescued. But the challenge is getting it to the person that's hungry. So sometimes the food may be located in an area where the hungry person is not adjacent to. So the logistics of gleaning more fresh food before we have to throw it away is my next challenge. Are we pleased with almost 15 million pounds of food being gleaned? Yes, but we know that there is more food waste out there. So how do we work with everyone? Work with your family, work with your friends, work with your neighbors to teach, coach, and train about food insecurity and taking food at your table to someone who is hungry. We've mastered the supermarket's business. We're working on the restaurant business, but the business that is untapped is food insecurity that exists in your neighborhood. As you come into our building, you see that circle with the X. And we were founded, as you know, by Kip Tiernan. And Kip had such a passion for food justice and food insecurity that that was the sign of a safe house when her grandmother used to distribute food during the Great Depression. So we want you to know that we don't discriminate. If you need food, the door is open. But I also think one thing that you did mention, like relative to the gleaning of the food, it's not just about trying to find that leftover food at the retailers. I think we have done a better job this year working within our network, but how can we help and support the other food banks in the state? It's nice that we're all part of Feeding America. So we can pick up the phone and call others and say, how can I Bostonize something, which is fabulous. And if someone has a process or a policy that we can copy, because imitation is the best form of flattery, in an effort to help us get more food, that's what we should do.
Right.
But I do think that there's an opportunity out there to glean more food with the farmers, to glean more food with the restaurants, to glean more food with school districts. How do we get that leftover food to the client that's hungry? And I think that's where we need to have that logistics network to move the food from point A to point B before we have to throw it away.
Right.
That's the challenge. And we're not going to solve that on our own. That's why we need the others in the state who have the passion for food insecurity and to help us solve this problem.
I think also really having conversations with people um, around food waste and how you can just mitigate it even in your own home. You know, buying what you need, buying to a set menu, repurposing meals that you've had in your fridge so that you're not wasting,
Right.
right? Within your own family. So it
Right.
becomes, I think, about a two-pronged approach. Number one, you yourself have more personal accountability for what your habits are. And then
Yes.
the other piece of that is the sense of responsibility that this is such a valued resource that others can really benefit from. And so if you really can't use it, how do you move it on to somebody
How do
who
you get,
can?
yeah. And everybody can play a role. Everyone has food waste. Come up with one idea per person, and we can solve this problem.
I used to speak very regularly in my previous role around, you know, your personal food habits, purchasing options, farming, different types of farming things. And people would say, oh, what can I do, you know, to be more environmentally friendly or sustainable? And I would always say, pick one thing. We don't have to change. We don't have to tackle it all
Right.
together right now, but
Right.
pick one thing and pick a thing that you use the most. Like, I don't know, whatever it is. If you find yourself discarding one product a lot of the time, and everybody can relate to fresh produce and the produce stores that you don't get to, that you think you're going to have time to do,
Right.
right, be more proactive and make a commitment to yourself that that's the one thing that you're going to address. And so Start with one thing.
Start with one thing. This is my analogy. So the small boxes of dried fruit like raisins, we have 10 children in front of us. And if every single child came up with one idea and came up to our table and started to stack those small boxes of raisins, instead of having it, a level playing field, it's think about how high that stack would be.
Yeah.
And how they will be able to help us solve the problems. That's another opportunity to work with young people and teach them on how they can make a difference, on how their actions have a reaction that may affect someone who is food insecure. Pam, what has the attitude been of the clients that are coming to the pantries? Clearly going through this SNAP challenge. Hopefully we were able to give you more food so they could sleep at night, knowing that they were still going to be able to provide their family with some additional resources. But we don't have the capability to maintain that. So how are the clients feeling?
Um, I can honestly say that this recent bout has shaken people up. The mood changed completely at all of our distributions. The anxiety levels off the charts. This is a system that's in place to support people that should be unshakable, right? It's something that people rely on, not for things that are nice to have, but so that they can eat. And imagine having that taken away from you. We experienced it a little bit during COVID when the grocery store shelves were all empty, and people were panicked about people who had the means were panicked about how they would access food. So you can take that and times it by like 100 to try and imagine what it must be like for somebody who doesn't have the means, can't stockpile food, doesn't have any other way to shore up food access for themselves. And that basic safety net that they count on to eat was ripped out from underneath them. So I think so many folks that came to us were pissed off, worried, um, yeah, just completely besides themselves. And the after effect of that is that how do you have faith in that system again, right? If that's so foundational to your world and something as simple as what happened and it can upend everything, how do you go about your day feeling safe or secure or supported or all those things and having faith that it'll be there, right? That when you go to the store and you swipe your card, it'll be there.
Right.
And I think that for me is when I asked you earlier, what's the one thing that's broken your heart? That for me is something that has really upset me. Is to see that level of anxiety and to see how it's affected folks and to see moms worried about feeding their kids or, you know, I think of my parents even, seniors, we serve so many seniors who are on a fixed income, um, worrying about their spouse who is suffering with illness and they, are responsible as a caregiver and can't procure food.
Right.
Um, that's that's been very difficult.
We had a story as well on the North Shore where we are doing more expansion like we're doing in your area. And they shared with us that there was a gentleman who was 100 years old. In a century, he had never had to go to a food pantry until he found out that his SNAP card had no money on it. He had to go to a food pantry.
If this is a commitment we are making to folks
Yeah,
together, if we are saying you've lived to be 100, we've got you,
I know.
and you are going to have SNAP benefits, then that is a commitment that needs to be honored. I feel above all else, right? Because this is his health. This is
Right.
his life. This is
Right.
his. I struggle with understanding why in a country as wealthy as we are, um, that this has ever erupted into the problem that it is. I mean, cerebrally, I get the process, but as a human being, as a person connecting with other human beings,
Right.
as a person in this work, as a person meeting that 100-year-old person or this mom with her kids or these caregivers, because in our food pantry, a lot of who we serve are seniors, are people with disabilities, are people living on a fixed income, veterans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that goes back to the dignity piece too, and
Correct.
meeting people where they are, which
Correct.
is what we're all about.
Yeah. I want to give you what is going to make you feel better, and I want to give you what your family is going to eat.
If you can tell me one thing about this job since you started that has broken your heart, and one thing that gives you hope.
Not being able to solve food insecurity continues to break my heart. Knowing that there are 1.9 million people in the state that don't know where their next meal is coming from is breaking my heart. But the hope I have is coming in contact with people like you. If I did not work at the Greater Boston Food Bank, we would have never met. I would have not realized the work that you're doing in your community. And you started out small in one city, in one town, and you've grown to almost 20. And that needs to continue. And what I love and what gives me hope is that when we gather leaders together, there is no opportunity to be first. Everyone wants to cross the finish line together for the right reasons. So I have hope because of my team. I have hope because of people like you. And I have hope because we are surrounded with good donors, financial donors, food donors, volunteers, and folks that do want to advocate on behalf of the person that's hungry.
So if somebody watching us today was to say, feel inspired by what you're saying and to want to be a part of this village, this community of caring for each other, what advice would you give them?
Well, I love it when people visit the food bank or visit one of our local pantries, because then it's that aha moment. I have had people that have come into the building that have said, I constantly drive by that building and I don't know what you do. And then when they come in, they are amazed, they are enamored. And that's what motivates them. So I welcome anybody to come to the building, whether it's early morning, whether it's late at night. We want to show you what we do, because that's when you say, wow, here's how I can make an impact. Here's how I can make a positive contribution. It's amazing.
So Cheryl, I mean, we talk about this topic around volunteering that I'm learning more and more about recently is skilled volunteering. So even if you aren't able to show up in a specific time frame to pack a box, maybe you are a CDL driver, or maybe you have some other skill set. When we are organisms, functioning, living organisms, and there's a lot of logistics, there's a lot of building stuff, there's a lot of, layers of skills needed to keep a food bank moving and a food pantry serving.
Yes.
And so if you have a skill that you can offer, maybe you're a CPA, maybe you can be a business advisor or a strategy person, or can help think about what's available in your community and how that could be improved.
Yes.
Maybe you visit your local food pantry and see what skill you have that you can share. Because it doesn't always have to be boots on the ground.
No, it doesn't always have to be boots on the ground. And I love that opportunity. Reach out to your local food pantry. Come to the Greater Boston Food Bank. We have been looking for someone to assist us with maintenance. And that's where my husband comes into play, because as a teacher, he's here all summer, helping us put up the stop signs in the warehouse, helping us clean the floor, helping us get ready for our AIB audit, American Institute of Baking, helping me hang signs. So it's putting that person to work based on a skill set that you might be missing. So that's a perfect opportunity for someone to give back.
the thing about it too is it builds a more resilient food system,
Yep.
right? When we're talking about the rising need and how do we meet the demand, leveraging what's available locally is the smartest, most direct way to do that.
Right.
And
Right.
we partnered earlier this year through funding with one of your partners, the
Yes.
Gerstner Foundation,
Yes.
who supported a food rescue program within our own warehouse. We've expanded, we're expanding cold storage. We're going to put trucks on the road more regularly. And we're really going to test out different ways of doing this. We're bringing in new software that we've never used before that helps us with the many-to-many partnership management of that. And then also the cold storage temperature chain management of that to keep the food safe. And then the quick turnaround, because these are the challenges that come with cleaning and rescuing food,
Right.
is you have to make sure the food stays safe.
Right.
And you have to get it out really quickly. And so leveraging what we've been able to do at the South Shore Food Bank and Weymouth Food Pantry by gathering all the food pantries around the same table and encouraging us to work together and collaboratively and in step with one another is going to really help us do that. And I think do it in a way that has a terrific impact on our community and building that resiliency we're hoping to build.
And take that model and move it to another set of 9 or 10 cities and towns.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm the hub, the nucleus to support the 600 member agencies. In that model, in the success that you're building, you can be the hub, the nucleus to imitate and complement what we may need in other parts of the state.
Right.
We are all in this together, and none of us have the capability to solve it on our own.
No.
But that is what's keeping me up at night. How do we get that leftover food to the person in need?
So let's talk too about some of the systems barriers that exist. You know, we talk about this pervasive problem and solving it. I know in our town, for instance, transport is a significant barrier. That's why we got the bus.
Yes.
We don't have public transport. It's difficult to get from one town to the other, one side of town to the other. And so, you know, we're such a car community, but if you can't afford groceries, chances are you can't afford the insurance, the
Right,
tires, the
right,
gas,
right.
the maintenance, whatever it is on a vehicle, the licensing. And so, you know, our pantry is fully mobile because of that, in response to that. But what are some of the other barriers that you find as to, you know, why people are struggling with food access?
Yeah, I think that is a key relative to traffic. You know, again, I'm here early to beat the traffic. I live about 30 miles away from the building. And that is a tremendous barrier. The other barrier is volunteers at the food pantry. Ideally, we would like to be able to distribute the food when our drivers are available to distribute the food, but those soup kitchen shelters and pantries may not have the volunteers to unload it, to store it. So we are at the liberty of the volunteers, and we are also at the liberty of the infrastructure, especially in the larger cities and towns in which we operate. You know, we operate in 190 cities and towns, 9 counties. We distribute food all the way up to the New Hampshire border, down to Cape Cod, the islands.
Yeah.
The
I
islands.
was
We have
so surprised when I found
yeah,
that
we
out.
have a shelter on Nantucket, and we have 3 on Martha's Vineyard. So imagine if the weather is bad, how we get food out to those folks that need that healthy meal. So the infrastructure of transportation, and I even think even in our building, we do a cycle count inventory every day. We cannot lose an item, and those are some of the structure that I brought relative to scheduling and inventory and timing, and just basic things that other for-profit food warehouses do. We operate like a for-profit because we can't lose a case, a pallet, or an individual jar. We have to know where everything is. And is that an opportunity for us to use technology? Should we be doing inventory with drones? I don't know. But that's why we partner with folks like Amazon to say, can I get into one of your technologically savvy warehouses? Because if I can save time and I can save money on providing an efficiency on a process that we do every day, then I can buy more food. And that's how we're going to solve this problem. Get the food to those in need.
On a previous tour of this warehouse, I was so impressed by the product location software that you use.
Yep.
When we place an order, we don't think about how it's getting from whatever shelf down onto the truck. We don't think about the process of picking, but really it's so involved.
Right.
And you have each of your bays labeled, you have product everywhere, and you have software that says, go here, pick 6 cases, then go there. And that software maps out the most efficient routes, right?
Yeah, correct.
So that is something that I was blown away because like you say, this warehouse operates as if it were a for-profit warehouse for the purpose of efficiency and money saving and product saving.
Yes. Well, we just purchased an automatic floor scrubber. So the individual at the end of the day that would sit on the floor scrubber to wash the floors, whether they're up here in our arrivals area where all the volunteers come in, or they're downstairs on the warehouse floor, I can now reassign that individual to do something else. So I think technology, we have to take advantage of the technology that works. So there is a tremendous amount of opportunity for technology, but it's got to be a win-win. So the technology has to make us better, not provide more hours or resources for the team. So you referenced how we do voice selection. We want to teach the selector not to say these, I'm going over to the slot that has the eggs. They go over to an item and they are told to select so many cases, and they have to speak back to the voice selection and or key it in on their wrist to say, yes, that's what I chose. Again, I have to make sure that your order is selected to exactly what you want, because if we short ship or overship, something may go to waste or someone may not eat. So by creating those efficiencies, we have increased the inventory accuracy. When I first got here, it was well below 88%. Industry standard is around 90. We are now over 97% inventory accuracy.
Yeah, and I can testify to that, Cheryl.
And the quality of the food that we have as well, that's another mechanism that we utilize technology, ranking the food that comes in. The food that we're purchasing has a 98% high nutrient quality. I like ice cream, but I'm not going to go out and purchase ice cream. If it gets donated, we'll take it. We just had 8,000 cases of pies that were donated for Thanksgiving, and we are so thankful because folks not only need the turkey, the fixing, they also need that pie. But because of my nutrition standards, and we have a nutrition policy, there are items that I'm not going to go out and purchase. So it's both. It's the nutrient quality, but it's the technology that will drive us to become even more efficient.
So I'm going to bring you back to the innovation piece for just a moment, because we spoke a little bit about what you're doing here in the warehouse. But one of the things that we did, that you did last year, was make pantry software available to all of the food pantries in your network at no charge. And the impact that this has is it helps us record the amount of food that we're bringing in and moving out, and the demographics of who it's going to, so that we can identify more broadly and more specifically who we're serving, who is vulnerable, where the focus needs to be. And so I thought that was so insightful. So forward thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that's we need you, and we need that accurate data. Why? Because the donor wants that data. And we're proud to say, when we speak to people and say we're feeding 600,000 clients a month. We don't make that number up. That's a huge number, but we have the data to support that. So without you having accessibility to give us good information, again, you're the reason that we expanded the perishable side of the building. We can go up, we can't go out. We are landlocked in this particular, area. We do have 1,100 solar panels on the roof. We talked about that briefly. That was another innovation that we did. We sell that back to the grid so we can buy food. We reinstituted all of our lights. They're all LED because we are getting financial return. We worked with a company called Viking Cold Storage where they gave us free, I call them ice packs, in our freezer. They were free. What they wanted us to do is when their clients come in, that they a customer, we want to tell them how easy the maintenance is, literally minimal, and that is saving me on energy costs in the freezer. So it's about technology, it's about innovation, and it's about working with others so that we can save pennies to buy more food. We just launched, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, the therapeutic food boxes. So not only do we have to provide the culturally relevant items, but I want to be able to give those seniors, to give that pregnant young mother, the food that is going to make them feel better so they can take care of their family, so they can go out to work. And that, with your help and with the help of other pantries in our network, we are able to target and get those therapeutic food boxes out to the person that needs that nutritious, healthy meal.
We love that program because when you are celiac or whatever your struggle is and whatever dietary shift you need to make for your health,
Right.
you
You could have a
your
heart condition, be obese, have a renal issue, be pregnant, or need that all combined and all gluten-free. So there's 9 factorial different boxes that we can make to suit your medically tailored needs. That's what we need help with.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to the dignity piece too.
Correct.
And meeting people where they are.
Correct.
Which is what we're all about.
Yeah. I want to give you what is going to make you feel better, and I want to give you what your family is going to eat. And we're getting better and better every day. But there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. Over 50% of that money stays in the state. We talked about the locally grown farmers, and we try to continue to expand that every year. Clearly, we are not in a produce-rich state. We do import the majority of the food here, but we use as many local purveyors as we can, not sacrificing quality, looking at cost, and making sure that it's consistent to what we need. You mentioned when you get a donation, it may not be the right item for the client. And that's where we need to try to develop a trade scenario, if you will. Someone in the state will need that food. So how do you get that to the person that's hungry? But that's what we tried to do with the procurement of food in the state. Everything has a nutrition standing. Everything has a product specification. Quality and service are at the top of our list. That's why we inspect every box that comes into the building.
So in closing, I want to tell you about our bus.
Yes.
The food pantry bus. We took a 30-foot school bus and we gutted it out completely and turned it into a mobile food pantry. So it looks like the inside of a grocery store.
I've seen it. It's amazing. Amazing.
And it allows us to go anywhere and meet people right where they are. And so one of the things I love about this food pantry bus is that, first of all, how mobile it is, how dynamic it is. We can set, a couple of years ago, one of the food pantries nearby to us had to close. They got flooded. And then when they were doing flood remediation, they found asbestos. So they had to layer in asbestos remediation. And the food pantry ended up being closed for a substantial amount of time and having to figure it out. And they did. But if we'd had the bus, we could have just loaded it up and sent it out into that community, right? So it's a dynamic and emergent response. It meets people where they are. And I love everything about that. But now we talk about sustaining that program. And so one of the things that I think comes up often when we're talking about fundraising and talking about the value of $1 as a donation is making a commitment to a recurring donation, right?
Yes.
How do you speak to folks about a recurring donation and how it sustains your mission? Like, how does a recurring donation impact the Greater Boston Food Bank? And
one item that I know the pantries are constantly asking for is eggs. That's the number one requested item that's coming out of our dairy cooler.
Because it's such an easy protein. It's such a low lift to cook.
Yep.
It's so accessible to so many people and it's healthy.
And there are so many different cultures that will utilize this one item. We need more eggs. So right now, we probably need 8 truckloads of eggs a month. We're purchasing 6. So if we can get a donor to provide us with the money for minimum 1 year to sustain purchasing more eggs, they will be able to feed more clients.
Right.
As opposed to 1 month, if I can get the 8 truckloads of eggs that the pantries need, what happens the next month?
Right.
So we need consistency, we need sustainability, and we need to give the client what they're asking for. So it is so beneficial to the hungry person if we can sustain that one item 365 days a year.
Yeah, makes a big impact. So we are going to do a tour, which I'm very
we're
excited
gonna go
about.
take a look
We're
at the
going to bring
warehouse.
everybody with us.
Yes,
However, before we do that, I wanted to ask one more question.
sure.
And then we'll close out. And
Sure.
that is, describe your job in just 3 words.
Fun, physical, and mental.
I love that. Cheryl, it's been such a pleasure talking
Thank
to you.
you, my friend.
Yeah.
Love you.
I love you too.
Yeah, thank you so much to those that are creating knowledge about what we do. And if anybody has any questions, please come and visit us at the Greater Boston Food Bank. I'm here to give you a tour. Thank you.
Yeah, you get to meet this lovely cherub in person. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the heart and mechanics of the Greater Boston Food Bank with Cheryl Schondek. As we've heard today, whether it's through voice-picking technology in the warehouse or a mobile pantry bus on the road, the goal remains the same. Ensuring a healthy meal is a basic human right for everyone. If you feel inspired by today's conversation, remember that shared responsibility is what moves the needle. The Shelf Life is a podcast by South Shore Food Bank, hosted by Pam Denholm and produced by Metacomet Studio. To learn more, to find a local pantry, or to get involved, visit southshorefoodbank.org.